Hey guys, what is going on? It's Alexander Williamson here with the secrets. I'm full of secrets. History living in your aquarium. So, how is everybody doing on this gorgeous day? If you live out west in the Pacific Northwest, it's a sunny day. And I see a lot of you have already hopped in early, so it's nice to see you. Antonio, Fish Tropic, always good to see you. Fishroom Fever, Carlos Cardenas, nice to see you. Oh, you have your tub set up. Fishy Fun 57, British Fish. Fishy Fun says, hey, until. Oh, never mind. That's from earlier. So, Otter Creek Aquatics, what's going on? Haven't seen you in a minute. Good to see you. Muppet929. Josh B. Fake name. All right, we got lots of people rolling in now. Okay, how is everybody doing? Today I will answer any questions you guys want, just open format style. But I am also going to feed some of my micro predators while we discuss tubbing because micro predators are the perfect little critter to have out in your tubs. And by tubbing, fish wise, what I mean is that is having a container, and it could have filtration and heat, I suppose, but normally there's no filtration, no heat. It's just a soil or dirted container, like a half of or a quarter of a wine barrel or whiskey barrel style, and then what you're doing is uh, you're putting probably rocks and gravel for the base at the very bottom, planting some maybe lilies or Aponogeton or some sort of bulb that will grow. I always like bulb plants, anyways. And then some stem plants, maybe some floating plants, some red root floaters, salvinia, something like that. And the point of these tubs generally, you could use an old trough too for like feeding horses and cattle if you have like a Granger supply store near you, if you're in a rural area. If you're in the city, I mean, you could literally use a Tupperware tub, get a 20-gallon Tupperware tub and use that. Not going to look great. I'd get a terracotta pot or something over that, but do what you will. But basically, the requirements for doing this are you want a resilient fish that can take the temperature swings, depending on where you live. If you live in Florida or Texas, I mean, buy whatever you want, basically. But or San Diego or something. But if you're in New York or Virginia or Oregon, Colorado, whatever the case may be, you're gonna want to look and definitely make sure the nights aren't going down any cooler than 50 for the most part. And if they are, then you'd want to put a heater in most of the time. But the thing that a lot of people don't think about when they're doing an outdoor fish pond, aquarium, whatever it may be, is that fish. Okay, so a lot of people think fish need to live in this narrow range of temperatures, and that's true for them to prosper and thrive in many cases. That they have a natural range, but think about swimming in a river for a minute, or a lake for that matter. When you jump off a dock or off a boat or something into a lake, if you've done that before, what happens? Well, you jump into the top water and it's usually, it's cold. You're like, "Whoa, that's cold," but it's okay. But if you dive down or you jump off a cliff or jump, off something, off a diving board or whatnot, off a pier into the water, it gets really cold in a matter of feet and it gets dark in a matter of, within 20 feet, you start losing a lot of the light. So what do you think happens? Do you think fish only swim in their specific layer and they don't change? No, these fish frequently, to avoid predators, will dart down 20 feet deeper into a lake or whatnot. Now there are exceptions. There are fish that live in regions where they live in shallow water that's already evaporating. It's already in 100-degree sun all day long, and some of those fish are too specialized. You wouldn't want to use them. But for the most part, people don't give a fair shake to a lot of fish that can be done in tubs. And you're really looking for an ambient water temperature of 65 or above. And really, 65 is the true temperature that tropical fish, the cutoff really is. Some fish will not be colored up as much, they'll be sluggish, they may not reproduce, but they'll almost all will still survive okay at 65, honestly. Almost all. There's, discus, and there's exceptions to that. But especially in the nano fish world, nano fish, they're not warm-blooded, and so they have small circulatory systems, and it doesn't take much energy to go into them to either heat them up or cool them down. So they are kind of at the whims of the temperature in the water. But because of that, a lot of them, they're cold-blooded, obviously, and because of that, their metabolism is really the issue. So their metabolism and immune system is what would slow down. And likewise, in that ecosystem, a lot of those things slow down for other creatures too. So I just want people not to rule out those things. Like, for instance, yes, if I'm saying you want to keep cherry shrimp, or Neocaridina blue dream, or whatever it may be, certain shrimp and snails and things, you may want to keep them at 78 degrees or 76 degrees for breeding, to get the most out of your money, to not have any die. But if you're tubbing and you want to put out shrimp, I've literally had Neocaridina shrimp survive the entire winter outside. They'll burrow in the mud. If you think about their range, for instance, I mean, even though they live in the tropics, and arguably I would say subtropics if they're up in the hill streams of Taiwan and some parts of the Yunnan province of China and so forth, um, they really, it gets cooler up 2 or 3 thousand feet up, 700 meters up in the mountains. And a lot of these shrimp and things live in the little streams and ponds and pools that collect coming down from there. And so a lot of them are actually fine in that temperature. When shrimp get shipped, a lot of times they also are fine getting down to really cool temperatures. Lucas Bretz, for instance, he doesn't even need to necessarily put a heat pack if it's just shrimp. Um, so as long as they're not freezing, freezing really destroys cells. So as long as they're not freezing, that's one major cutoff of species across the board. They have to have something, for instance, carp or goldfish. They can even tolerate that, koi, because they have, and I'm spacing on the name, but they have a enzyme and a chemical compound in their blood that allows them to actually have a natural antifreeze. And believe it or not, there are quite a few fish that have that same trait, and some of them are in the hobby. So you've got things like um, rice fish, for instance, Medaka rice fish, Indian rice fish. You've got celestial pearl danios and erythromicron that come from the Inle region, the Lake Inle of Myanmar, or formerly Burma. And you've got a lot of these fish are up in the mountains. They're up to 3,000 feet, in river drainages. And it may very well be 100 degrees in the day and humid, but during the monsoon season, that rain is coming down, and it's ice crystals in the upper atmosphere, a lot of it, and it comes down, and it can cool things off drastically. I mean, it can cool things off down to like 70 degrees ambient temperature in the air. Like you can drop 30-degree temperature all at once. Same within the Amazon when or Venezuela or Peru. Venezuela at the coastline, and uh, Peru at the mountain line when it goes up. So yeah, I think that looking at where fish are from gives us a lot more room to experiment on what we want to do in our tubbing season. So there's the safe standbys if you're new at this, but if you're not new at this and you've done it many years, like maybe think outside the box. And also, when you set up a tub for outside, there's some things you want to keep in mind, and one of them would be the sun. So really, we worry more about fish getting too warm more than them getting too cool. So if they get too cool, their metabolism slows down, and a lot of fish go into what we call stasis, like a suspended state of existence. They slow down, and even their heart and the amount of blood and or oxygen they need in their blood is reduced. But with the heat, it actually increases their metabolism, and then to a point it can cause things like heart attack, stroke, but it basically just throws off all the systems. Usually they go into renal or kidney failure, and that's that. As well as the dissolved oxygen in water becomes harder for them to breathe. So another thing to do is, if you're worried about that maybe you have a fish that's a little sensitive, is that you can pump more air into that water in the tub and aerate it, and that can help greatly compensate for the temperature and even for things like ammonia. If you have less bubbles and things going, and you have fish something like bettas or licorice gouramis and some labyrinth fish species, things like that, maybe they can breathe the air just fine. They come to the surface and they can breathe, and they don't need so much churning in air, which also keeps the ammonia down, which means you can put them in a smaller container. But that's all going to be up to you, because some people think it's very cruel to put fish in a small space, and other people think that it's just fine. And to me, I think the real answer should be, well, what do they do in the wild? And if in the wild they have a small territory that they defend, I think as long as you're getting the, not necessarily the volume of water even, but the perimeter, or the little cave space plus a hunting area, whatever it may be, as long as you're getting them that set up, that's where I think it's ethically okay. That's why I don't like people who just put a fish in an aquarium with a little stone castle, or a little treasure chest that opens and closes, or a diver or something like that. It doesn't simulate or comfort the fish at all. It doesn't simulate their natural habitat, and they've grown to live a certain way. They've grown accustomed to a certain lifestyle. All right, Chan Law Monkey says, question, can I use clean shells in my freshwater tank to raise the pH, similar to commercially available crushed coral? Yeah, you can. You can even use calcium carbonate, so baking soda. You can use cuttlefish bone from the pet store that birds chew on, that you would put in their container for their beak. You could use literally crushed bones, or limestone. You could aquascape with limestone. I've done that before too. You just want to, make sure that the shells aren't, one, covered in a bunch of salt, and two, that they don't have any sort of mold or pests or just issues after the fact, because they could have been in the salt water, but maybe then they're up on the beach and they're in a rain puddle and they've got algae on them or whatnot. So I would just clean them, and then you can crush them and use those also. Yeah. Tums. Yeah, I don't know about Tums. I've never personally used Tums. I mean, chemically, I definitely know they would increase the pH, meaning that it would be more basic and less acidic, which is something that really you would want for African cichlids and some central North American cichlids as well. And fish that live in limestone areas, such as Alabama cavefish, or some of the Southeast Asian, Vietnamese, and Southern Chinese fish also usually neutral to 8.0 water. It's not extreme. Whereas acidity, you can drop the acidity down to 3 or 4. I mean, down to like almost orange juice levels. Not quite. Before a lot of fish from in rainforest habitats have problems. So I think that's just something to keep note of. And the other thing while we're talking about tubbing, let's turn this around, is indoor ripariums, vivariums, things like that. So here we just have like a little 2-gallon deal. Really, there is just probably about 1 gallon of water in here. And so all that's in here, check this out. So the sun's shining. Can you guys see the bubbles coming up? I want you to see this. If we can get it to show. You see the bubbles coming off on the far left, off the plants? That's purling. So that means that the plant has enough energy from the substrate that without CO2, without filter, without anything, it is actually releasing little teeny bubbles. And in here, all we have are some neon Medaka rice fish. And these live naturally in Japan now. And this is their closest to their kind of wild type. There's a male and female in here, and they're in here to spawn, basically. So I can keep an eye on them in the mornings. There's also some shrimp in here, too. But there we go. You can see they're a little flighty right now. Also, it was nice and sunny out. Now it's getting dark, and my wife opened the door, so it kind of startled them. But we'll see if they come back for a sec while I answer a couple more questions here. Chris Osdenmore says, "Hey man, just wanted to say thanks. Watched a bunch of your stuff lately. Really enjoyed it. Some really useful information." Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I try to, even on these videos like this one where I'm just kind of rambling and we talk about a bunch of different topics. I try to help you guys out if I can on certain questions and things. And then the other thing obviously is on the history videos and the trivia of things where I research a video. Those are the ones that I really love doing and enjoy, and that take the most time. I'm usually working on 4 to, I don't know, 8 videos at a time, and I'm doing research and adding to things. And then what I'll do is I'll kind of make parts of the video and not necessarily record it, but I'll wait until I have those, and I'll go back and I'll either listen to my dictated notes or I'll read what I had written or videotaped, sorry, and that will inform me as to how I'm going to do like a one take type thing, because I really like speaking off the cuff. I like the more vlog style entries, and I feel like it allows me to flexibly communicate with you guys a lot quicker rather than having to have an outline and missing things and having to jump back to it, and it feels more natural for me, and that's my personal preference. I hope you guys enjoy it as well. It allows me to point out when something random happens, and it definitely weeds out those folks who just they're very impatient, and that's okay. Sometimes you just want the info and want to hit and run and get out of there. But there's a certain demographic in the hobby that is impatient, and I know they're not going to be around very long, because you really do need patience for this hobby, and you need to be able to wait for things to cycle or for fish to mature or whatever it may be, whatever the case, you have to wait. You have to be an adult and wait. Children are much better adults than some adults. So, in any case, Fishy Fun 57 found a new use for heat packs when they're still not hot. I am using them for my sore back like a hot water bottle. Yeah, I can definitely attest to that working. That's for sure. Shara Dreamer, how's it going? How are you doing? Bit late, but I made it going my own tubs for the first time this season. if everything goes according to plan. Yeah, it's a great year to do it. It's a great with all the illness potential going around, and if we have a second wave, and just the fact that a lot of people, for us, for instance, we're not having people come into our living room. Sorry, I didn't clean or anything, but we're not having people come into our living room and hang out like we normally would. We're not having people over for dinner. So we've been out in the front yard and in our carport. We don't have much of a yard. So we don't have a yard, for instance, but we have a porch and we have a carport. And people have been coming over and hanging out there. And I mean, wouldn't it be lovely to have some beautiful lilies, some Nymphaea micrantha, some tiger lilies, some floating plants, and then, some beautiful rice fish. Now, if you guys happen to be into rice fish and you see this now or later, and you have any rare species or species that are just not common in the US, but maybe really common in the rest of the world, and specifically Japan, Taiwan, and China, Korea, Vietnam, Laos, Hong Kong, all those places, please get in contact with me. Like the red cap Medaka rice fish. There's the Daisy's blue rice fish, the Indian, it's a triangular bodied rice fish. It's not technically a Medaka style rice fish. And then there's also these neon blue or neon red, however you want to call them, rice fish that are still similar to the Daisy's species, but they've just haven't been selected for the blue as much. Only the males have that blue. Moving on, so I have collected from my tubs outside, which are 20-gallon aquariums. I've collected a whole boatload of little goodies to feed some fish. And so we'll do that soon as well on the live stream while I'm chatting more. It looks like we got some baby guppies hatching in the guppy grass. And then up here, these are the crebensis young that are now, this is one of the smaller ones still. And only about 5 survived, I think. But you can see they're maybe an inch long now, a little bit less than that. There's more in here too. Yeah, there's a bigger one right there, starting to get a little bit of color, but they're probably the same size as maybe my pinky digit, the last knuckle. But the female crib is in here, and she's got more eggs. I don't know if we can see them at all. I don't want to bug her, stress her out. Last time she got stressed and she ate her eggs again. So I want her to lay some. The other thing is, if you guys have any Nanochromis splendens, that is another fish I'm really trying to get my hands on. The Nanochromis splendens, and then the rice fish with any interesting color markings, especially the mock koi ones, really interest me. But this is a great example of a tank that you could do as a tub. Like, if this might as well be a cross section of a wine barrel. You can grow all these plants in 50, 60, 70, 80 degree water. It doesn't matter the temperature, honestly. A lot of plants do better, in fact, in those temperature ranges. I still like using aqua soil that's my preference over normal soil, but you can use potting soils and things like that. I would just make sure to test that it's been out there a while. I mean, now is a great time to set up the plants and things and allow mosquitoes and all sorts of little critters, worms and things, to establish in your tubs, so that when it's time to actually go out and put fish in them, the fish will have plenty of food and plenty of things to survive and thrive off of. Now, another interesting plant here I can show you a couple of, for instance, the kabamba. That is a red kabamba, but purple kabamba grows naturally in the U.S. The rotalas, these all grow naturally in the U.S., all these up front here. The Ludwigia ex lacustris, which has right here, this beautiful plant here, Ludwigia hybridized with lacustris. It occurs from Rhode Island all the way down to Georgia. And it actually likes, freezing winters and things. So there's some plants You can see here it's growing more nodes now that it's getting towards the top, but there are some plants that actually do even better in cooler waters. The hygrophila or hygrophilia variegated snow white versus the variegated pink. Both those I attained at a local park in Seattle. They are deemed pest species. They're actually illegal to buy and sell. But I guess if they fall into your aquarium accidentally while you're collecting other plants that are legal, like Ludwigia, like a Ludwigia repens, this isn't a super red, but super reds come from this line. So they've been naturally selected from the line. Now, the plants you're going to want to stay away from, you can use mosses and things, but make sure they are cooler water mosses. You don't want to be using like a peacock moss, a coral moss, a java moss, things like that. They may hold up for a little while, but they're just going to grow algae and then they're going to turn brown and they're going to decay into ammonia building junk basically. And be reasonable. I mean, you could use firemouth Texas cichlids, for instance. You could use flagfish from Florida. You could do all sorts of different native North American, European, Eurasian, and Chinese paradise fish is another great one. Those can withstand very cool temperatures. Meteor minnows, golden meteor minnows, those are all really, really great. The meteor minnow is also, it's a type of little top minnow, and it's the red longer fin Vietnamese version. There's also a Chinese version um, of the red meteor minnow too. So let's see here. Charger Dreamer says that he's excited to learn the ins and outs of Canadian pond season. Yeah, I think that for you, bulbs are going to be a great choice. You can even plant bulbs like in the winter, in the fall, in the spring, whenever. Um, and some people even do seeds, and I believe they do that in the fall if you're going to use seeds, but I'm not positive on every type because I don't think tropical and subtropical bulbous plants need that. I think that's just the plants that grow, in North America and Europe. Those kinds of like water cabbage and some of the lilies, skunk cabbage, things like that. They actually need frosts and things to signal when they're ready. Um, let's see here. Um, what about Java rice fish? So Java rice fish, yeah, usually, I mean, so by the heat of summer, even in, Maine, Washington, wherever it may be, even with the swings in, say, Montana or North Dakota, what I would recommend is morning sunlight, getting good morning sun of maybe till 10 or 11 a.m. and then have shade if you can. That's the ideal because in later in the day it'll get hot, and as long as you keep putting water in that, and as long as it's about 20 gallons or more, that water shouldn't turn to like straight bath water just from ambient heat. It should be evaporating quicker than it's heating up to 100 degrees outside, as long as your day and night cool off. Now, if that's not the case, you're going to need water to start moving. Like down in Florida, you might need to actually, or Hawaii, you might actually need to move your water just to give it that ability to cool off for the heat and the energy to release. Plus, that will give more air and aeration for your fish, and they'll be happy about that as well. So, let's see here. If you're looking for some rice fish, look on Shrimp Fever. Okay, thanks for the heads up. I'll take a look. Anyone know if people tub in hotter areas like Arizona? Oh, definitely. A lot of people tub specific. I mean, you can start now in a lot of those places, but what people do will they'll keep the tub close to their house, and their house works as a heat sink, or they'll actually bury it, and the ground is a really great insulator. It's surprising, it'll hold steady a temperature for quite some time, especially with the plants in there. If you have floating plants, that will really insulate the water between everything. You know, the floating plants are great. You can also get insulated tubs. I've seen a lot of people, for instance, Lucas Bretz, who I'm friends with, he uses an old jacuzzi. So that's another, I mean, you can get those for free oftentimes. I know they're kind of a pain, but if you have a large property, that's that's a great huge tub. I mean, you could put 1,000, pseudomagills in there or something. Um, that's a really good one. So the other thing I just thought I'd show you guys real quick, we've got some eggs in here. My angelfish laid eggs the other night, and they laid them right on the pipes here. Same pair. We got these two that are always laying together, and I'm really curious to see how their babies turn out. The babies have been getting rot very frequently, the eggs, so I'm working on that. And so far, all the last 3 rounds, either the fish have eaten them, or a rot or fungus has killed them. And so I'm trying using methylene blue this round once they're wrigglers and things. But my biggest hope is that I can hatch some. I'm trying both a cloth or vinyl at probably netting, and then also the slats that allow water in and out. But we're gonna try that, see what hatches. You can see there are a few eggs that are bright white, and those are rotting already. But we're going to see what happens. A good way to test out something like a tubbing season too is what you want to do is you can get something like this even indoors, and say you want to do some sort of rasbora or a tetra outside. Those would be hotter water species, and you don't want them to dip real cold at night either, because in the jungle that doesn't really happen. So you want good insulation in it, and maybe a heater that kicks on at 70 or something like that, just in case, or 74 if you really wanted to do neon tetras and you live somewhere farther south. So that, though, I would try it out first in either a 2.5 or a 5 or even a 10-gallon tank. And what you want to do is you can go reference my spawning videos, but what you do is you basically elevate the base. You don't put any substrate in it yet. You want a sponge filter that's well cycled, so that the fry don't get sucked in or anything, but that it's well cycled and that the tank's ready to go. And then you want nice clean water, and you can put moss or whatever you'd like down. But what you're going to do is you're going to put either some little space holders, whether it's stones or pieces of plastic, or little pieces of Brillo sponge or something like that, that you could just set as a spacer. And all you need is about an inch or 2 inches, something like that, in between the floor and the sides, and no way for them to get down. Now you can use crochet mesh that they have for needlepoint. I guess it's not for crochet, it's for needlepoint. And it's a grid you can get at Joann's Fabric. You can buy it online. But that allows you then to put a grid down, and when they lay their eggs, you can see how many eggs they're going to be laying. And they're going to lay eggs a lot more realistically as to the wild, which in some cases, for instance, with Corydoras, you're better off, and angelfish, you're better off a lot of times indoors, artificially doing the spawning, because that's just, we can control the variables, make it optimal for them, simulate a wet season and so forth. Same with discus. Whereas outside in a tub, some of the smaller fish, some of the minnows, the darters, the top minnows, any sort of sunfish, things like that, they're all going to be better off outside, because they're going to have cycles of hunting real food, real prey. They're going to have the plants like they want, and then they're going to have that muddy bottom of substrate, or they're going to have moss that you've placed in there, lots of leaves, whatever it may be that you choose. You're going to want to cover that bottom so that the eggs can fall down in there and that the fish aren't rooting around. And at the bottom of even like a 1 or 2 foot deep barrel, you're really going to have, it's darker. The fish are not going to be seeing the eggs. It's out of sight, out of mind for a lot of them. And same with shrimp. The babies can get down under there, under that needle point, and get away from their parents if, or other fish if that's the issue. So I like to pick, maybe 10 Neocaridina, like red cherry shrimp, or Malawa shrimp work really great too. Malawa shrimp. Uh, I'll pick those and I'll put them out in the tub. Maybe like 7 or 8 females and a couple males, and I'll just let them go to town, and it'll look like they're all gone. It'll look like birds ate them or something. And then you lift up the rocks, you kick around the gravel, and you start finding them everywhere after a few months. That's how it generally goes. Now the other thing is, if you have a tub set up, you still need to be very aware of like what your container's leaching. You don't want it to be leaching copper or heavy metals and things like that, because those really do impact fish very adversely. But on the other hand, you don't have glass that you're worrying about being completely clean. You're really worrying more about the top and scum. So you don't want protein building up, and you don't want ammonia and nitrites and nitrates building up too high. So you can test your pond and things like that, but really, if you plant it well enough, it should regulate just fine, especially if you're using species that are on the smaller side. All that being said, I would not do plecos outside. I would not do angelfish outside unless you live in, South America or something in the Amazon. Um, but another example of my setups in here, there's no fish in here. There's a couple baby shrimp just growing out. But in here, we've got my Carolina pygmy sunfish. So these ones, they can withstand. I mean, just think about the weather in North and South Carolina. They get ice storms and things. So these fish, they can bury themselves under the mud. And that's where substrate kind of can be important. But really, what's more important is growing a nice root mat or putting a lot of moss and leaves down like a few months ahead of the fish. Or using, like, this is a blue hygrophila here, and this is a hygrophila sunset. We've got some rotalas and some mini butterflies, and then this is that same pink variegated hygrophila sunset rosevig. And it's smaller because it's getting lower light, and there's no high energy light kicking into this thing. It's just getting a little bit of morning light and then diffuse sunlight. But there's no algae or anything. You can see moss is growing up on the rocks. I didn't do anything other than put the moss in the water, and it's grown on its own. And these same things will happen outside. Likewise, you've got shrimp in here, and they've been in here for 2 years now, my blue dreams, and same with a few malawas. And this is a minute body of water. I thought it was mean, but pygmy sunfish, I've put them in big tanks, and they just sit in the corner and do nothing most of the time. So really, they've got their one cave here, one little cave there, and the two of them, they seem to be doing just fine. So, c'est la vie. Let's go downstairs and feed some fish. I'll look at the questions again here coming through. I just want to show you guys fish eating live food, because that's always entertaining while we chat. Also, I just flipped it back because the angelfish were fighting over territory for a sec. You have the two different pairs fighting. This pair lays eggs every other full moon, pretty much, whereas these ones don't. And we decided to name these two Prince and Vanity. So Prince being the male with the stripes. Maybe, Prince probably should have been the little one, but the little gold one over there. But since he's got some blue and brown and almost like a purple iridescence, he's Prince. She's Vanity, who was in real life the artist Prince's one of his proteges. Let me look at the chat real quick, just so I'm up to speed with y'all. I don't want to leave you hanging. Just received a shipment from Tommy at Shrimp Fever today. He almost out of everything, according to Spencer Jack in Winnipeg. His store is almost empty. Hard to get Asian fish. Oh yeah, totally. It's hard to get any fish. Imagine a proper hot tub full of devil's hole pupfish. Yeah, so the devil's hole pupfish, if you don't know, is this little fish. and they fluctuate between a population of around 80 and around 300, and they only occur in one cave system, which I think it was the Bureau of Land Management managed to ruin while they were working on it to make it safe somehow. And then now they've been introduced to a few other areas, but they're the rarest fish in North America, arguably. There's a couple cave fish species that are like blind and pink, and they're essentially worms. Yeah. Total Tropicals TV, Australia checking in. How's it going? Pseudomagills? Yeah, pseudomagills are great for tubbing in warm to moderately warm weather. I have done it here and it's worked. I would say don't go for the ones that live in really hot, like Papua New Guinea and things, but some of the coastal, like the blue-eyed signifers and also some of the Gertrude. Pseudomagills are great. Now, like the Aru Island ones, as well as Luminatus, not the best. But I've seen Praycox dwarfs also work really well as far as rainbow fish go. I don't know how, I just don't know, and I think you'd need more space for them, and they just need more than a little season. But I would say that you could also do rainbow fish theoretically in a warm climate, but I wouldn't, just because you're not going to get much spawn out of that. I mean, you can do mops in a tank like this and get eggs from rainbow fish daily. And I know rainbow fish, they're a world of their own, and if you're into them, you're into them. So I'm not going to get into them right now, because you probably already know all about them if you like them. And if you don't, check out some info on them or my tour of Bentley Pasco's house. Kathy says, Alex, what happened to the blue nails? The blue nails are gone right now. They started getting tacky and just peeling. So I said, I cannot have this. I am an artiste. And I took them off. But total, I have been watching Alex back when he was doing shrimp videos a couple years now. Fishy Fun 57. Yeah, and you know what? I really appreciate that, buddy. I've been around now. I mean, so I've had a YouTube account, and the first video I ever posted was me doing something dumb with fireworks when I was probably like 22 or something. But after that, it was actually some purple snake skin guppies, platinum guppies. If I lose you, I came downstairs because we're going to feed the tanks down here. Um, if I and I didn't know what YouTube was for. I just used it as a hosting site for my own stuff. It's kind of still what I use it for sometimes. Because this is this channel started as a project to document what I'm working on, to document what I learned, and to go back and read and watch. It had nothing to do with a business or selling anything or promoting my fish room or anything like that. Yeah. I mean, I didn't even have a logo for the longest time. I made Lucas a logo. I made, wow, Bentley, some fish art we talked about, and, um, Tampa Aqua, or Aquatic, Tampa Aquaculture, Tissue Culture HQ. Man, I've made a lot of people logos and stuff, but not myself. Um, the needlepoint mesh being food safe. That is a good point. I don't know if it is, but it does okay. um, and Corzer, thank you for saying that you saw my last stream with my coloring books and you enjoyed them. Yeah, this room's a mess right now. But there's a bunch of my published books, the independently published books on the bed over there. Right here we have a whole bunch of what's in my tubs outside right now. So I prep my tubs by might as well put Daphnia in them, even if it gets depleted. Why wouldn't you stock it with Daphnia? And then also, I mean, we've got mosquito larva up the yin yang. And so I want to make sure to feed that mosquito larva right to the fish rather than that. Also, David Rayner says angelfish are terrible beginning fish. I would probably agree with you there. Yeah, they're not friendly fish, and they are not super easy to spawn. I think cribs are a way better choice. But yeah, angelfish are kind of nasty and mean sometimes. Any case, let's see here. Flip this around. Dun, 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 dun. We'll look at some species that will work just fine outside. So we've got with the neocaradinas. Now, if you're gonna use neocaradinas and you don't live in like Kentucky, Missouri, Texas, Tennessee, I guess parts of Appalachia or Chicago, then you've got hard water in those areas. Florida, you've got limestone in your water, and the TDS is going to be high, the pH is going to be high. But out here, my pH is neutral, 7.0, and my TDS is like 20. So it's just basically rainwater and chlorine. They don't even have chloramine. So I need to add crushed coral or shells or snails, just years of snail shells I can scoop out of other old tanks. That works fine too. And that's that. So let's see here. Let's feed some of these fish. In here, we've also got guppies slash gambusia or other mosquito fish or millions fish, traditionally as they've sometimes been known, are just awesome fish to start breeding with outside. I mean, there's a reason why there are guppies in Germany. There are guppies in Canada. There are guppies in Hawaii. All over the world, there are wild populations of guppies that people have set free, and they don't usually ruin an ecosystem, but they'll find a hot spring or a thermal vent or a nuclear power plant or a coal power plant, whatever it may be. They'll find it. Now like I said, the best things to have outside in your tub is going to be micro predators. Now, why is that? It's because they're going to eat the micro prey, the fauna. You could also do bettas, fish of paradise. Down here, you could do a little licorice gourami or a sparkling gourami. Unless it needs intense tropicals, I mean, these little predatory fish are just awesome for this end. Also, now that I'm feeding mosquito larvae because it's a free source of protein for the fish, I like to watch it and make sure that it actually gets where I want it to go, because I don't want mosquito hatching in my house. So, I mean, they're like 2 weeks from hatching, and they're surrounded by black and red tiger Bettas in here. But you can never be too careful, I suppose, and guppies. So we got that, and then we've also got. We moved the scarlet guppies, the Dario. They are in here, and the reason behind that was because these guys in the tank that they were in, we had a big bloom of baby shrimp, and I don't want the baby shrimp to get monkeyed with and just murdered by a dozen of these monsters. So that's the case. And they're in their own little tub here. You can see they don't like it. They're only in here for a short time, but they're only going to be in here for about 2 weeks. And they'll hide in that moss ball all day. These guys have their old tank to themselves, but if you take a look, there are baby shrimp all over this tank, especially at night. You can really see them. They kind of hide in the day, but they're so teeny that there would be, I mean, nothing stopping from the Bettas from eating all of them, especially in this sparse tank. So in here, all the babies of my beautiful bettas. Uh, it's interesting. There are a lot of leucistic ones, and they're being very mean to each other right now. They're nipping each other's fins and tails. So they're starting to get split up. As soon as they hit these sizes, I'm splitting them up. Nobody's gotten any infections or any like serious problems from it, but I just feel like it's mean at a certain point to make them put up with that harsh nipping and fighting each other and all that jazz. The other thing that I thought I'd mention, let's put some more of these little live guys in here. Look at all the mosquito larvae. It is kicking up into mosquito larva season. Also, we got the pea puffers in here. If you didn't see my latest video that I posted, the pea puffers and the gudgeons, it was insanity. The other night when I noticed they were all working together to destroy every snail in the tank. And to that end, I tell you that we have snails for them tonight. So between them and rainbow or peacock gudgeons slash gobies, I mean people can't make up their name on those dang things. But they have been working as a team now that they've learned this. My bettas in the other tanks will not eat snails whatsoever. My cribs will once in a while, but not the bettas. And now the bettas are actually picking up snails, bringing them to this middle water, and allowing the pea puffers, which you'll see, to actually crack things open. Here's another betta here. And where are the peacock gudgeons are over here, and they're doing the same. So what we can do is we can take one of these little guys, get the feeding started by crushing it for them and getting some meat on the table. That should get them going. Come on, little pea puffers. You don't want pea puffers to be alone. I wouldn't do pea puffers in tubs ever. But bettas, I mean, what a great place for them to grow out. Same with goldfish, great place for them to grow out. Koi, great place for them to grow out. Yeah, see, he's targeting fish, or he's targeting now some of the snails that I just put in. Now, these little pea puffers, they're young, and they can't actually target the big snails. And so what's happening is they're still attacking those snails. And in the past, I've had pea puffers just needlessly, wantonly kill snails. Like, they just kill every snail they see, and they don't eat the big ones because they can't get at that big foot muscle. It's just too much meat, and they can just survive off the little guys. But now with this teamwork thing, everyone's waiting around, and the gudgeons aren't really quite strong enough to break open the snails. But everyone's just waiting around, hoping to get a chance to nibble on that. So that's what's going on up there. And we'll move downward. So down in here, this had just been blue dream shrimp. A whole bunch of them in here. Love them. They're my favorites. And in here, I have some new Somfongzi rasboras. I have 7 in here. There are a lot of shrimp that are very small and ready to be spawning in here. There are some planaria, so that was one reason I brought over the Somfongzi rasboras. But moreover, it's just time to spawn some more baby fish. I don't have any really young fry at the moment. The erythromicrons are getting to a decent size and so forth. Does bacteria in a bottle really help a cycle in a new tank? I have found bacteria in a bottle to be very good. I like ATM, the acrylic tank masters. Is that their name? Aquarium tank makers? Whatever. They're from that show Tanked, I think, on Animal Planet or TLC or one of those silly channels. But they make a product in a bottle called Colony by ATM, and that one I've actually had really good success with. I've been able to literally use it as directed, throw fish in the same day, and cycle it up for some when we were doing the Aquatic Gardeners Association, as well as a few other events I've done with aquascaping, where I just, it would have been fine with freshwater, but for a whole weekend, I didn't want to leave them in water that was like that, and so I wanted some bacteria to start growing. Sometimes you'll get a bloom, like the water will get all milky and stuff, but not necessarily. Alex has a great channel. I don't get here too often. It's my first live stream. Well, welcome to the live stream, by the way. Uh, let's see here. Fishy Fun 57, a wise gentleman says, or gal, I suppose, but I have assumed it was a gentleman. Maybe I'm wrong. Every 3 months, I add a calcium tablet with magnesium to my live bearer and neo shrimps. See, that's a great idea. There's lots of different variations on that. I've used eggshells, also just crushed up eggshells, boiled them, and that's been really, really useful for getting extra calcium in their diet. All right, so next round of food incoming. So let's scare these guys towards the front so you can see them. And unleash the Kraken. So, I don't have as much faith in these guys eating the mosquito larvae as I do the Daphnia. Now, somebody said they were worried about Daphnia in their tank potentially. They can get parasites or bacterial infections that could adversely impact your fish. However, I've not had too many issues. If you see dropsy or a sunken belly type thing, that's where you might want to investigate them as the source. But I wouldn't worry too much about, or worms, for instance, like stomach worms. If you see that they're just really looking malnourished, that's when I would investigate it. But other than that, I really haven't had a big issue with Daphnia or seed shrimp or anything like that. Now, mosquito larvae is a little more insidious in that way, actually. It can be a little more. These buggers can be. I don't know what they do. It's probably because they are predators. They are micro predators in their own regard. So they probably eat algae and zooplankton and things like that already has some of the little nasties in its stomach, and so you'd want to be careful. But I wouldn't be too paranoid. I mean, they're problems that are, for me, feeding them this food consistently helps their health more than the few that I've had get sunken bellies and parasites. It helps a lot more, and it fills them out, especially fry with these little nano. Look at them chase the little. They can't even catch the. It's kind of pathetic. It's good for the shrimp in this case, but they're not. I mean, they're even not good at catching the Daphnia. All right, so the next tank we're gonna take a look at. Let's move some light. Aziz Light. Can someone tell me where I have quoted that movie a million times? Where that movie came from, or where that line came from, I should say. So over here, sorry guys. So over here we have the next round of critters, and we've got. Let me hold on. Let me get situated here. I've got bottles of tannin and vinegar eels blocking my entrance. All right, so here we have some Kubota rasboras that are young, and they will eat these Daphnia. We also have Suda McGill, and we have Gertrude Suda McGills in here. And these are golden Gertrudes from the Australian coast. Um, I like these ones a lot. I got them from Aquarium Zen in Seattle. Um, and that's a Luminatus one that we're seeing there. Ooh, this is a big mosquito larvae. I don't think anyone in this tank's gonna eat that. So we'll hop back over here to the half beaks and guppies and rice fish, and we'll give them look at them chase that big boy. Mama got it. Wow, she ate it already. Mama, use a pig. Um, you know what's interesting about this tank is they will chase after all that. So sorry about the water stains, guys. That's unprofessional. But they will leave all these shrimp alone, all these Malua and gold nebula shrimp alone. But they will just ravage Daphnia and brine shrimp and anything else I put in here. Just tear it apart instantly. So I don't know why they. What's the deal? Also, I put my Ascupula. I'm probably saying that wrong. Danios. They're also sometimes called Panther Danios. There's also a form of Panther Danio that's just the Rario, the zebra Danio with spots. But these ones are different. They have half stripes and then half rosettes or dots on their tail, and then a rainbow shimmer to them. And they're from the Shan region and Lake Inlay. And then over back in there, you see the fry of my Tinwinnie Daniels. All these fish in here would be great for tubbing. The half beaks included, but the thing is, half beaks hang out towards the top of the water. So with half beaks, killifish, things like that, you might need to put them on like an eye if you have it or something like that, just for the sheer fact that you don't want your birds and things in the neighborhood decimating your population there. So let's see here. I need a little better light. The other thing that's in this tank that I'll show you guys an update on. So we got the Kubota Rasboras, we've got the Pseudomagills, and we've got the yellow line shrimp. But we also have more pygmy sunfish. So here's those Pseudomagills, the Gertrude. Here is one of the little sunfish, pygmy sunfish, full grown here. And this looks like to me a banded sunfish, a female here. I could be totally wrong, but that's what it looks like. Whereas over here, the one that I got, and I got these from a fellow club member, where this guy right here, he's got blue and darker colors that come out when you I don't know, when you see him in the right light and things. And he is they're the ones that can live in that tiny little bowl and be happy. I see one. Hold on. We see another one that's darkened up a bit. So here is one that will be bright blue. You see he's got that blue coming in. It's just bad lighting right now. But these ones are wild, and these definitely need live food. But these would be awesome candidates for doing tubbing with. Like, just great. Just great. Alright, let's get some more food down in there to them. And I like to feed them a lot of vinegar eels. Vinegar eels are definitely a good one for them. They're so small that it works well. Ugh. Micro worms, white worms as they're also known. Up here, just an update. The Phoenix Rasboras or Mera Rasboras, they're doing fine. They've grown up. They're almost full grown now. And the other type, same species of rice fish, just One's more blue, one's more orange. Selected for by humans. But yeah, you can see, look how colorful they are. And they're not even eating brine shrimp, which have all the iodine and red enhancing color in them, omega 3s. But just eating live food just brings fish to life, unlike anything else. I mean, let's give them the rest of the live food and we'll watch it. They're so, I mean, they're just so designed to nab it instantly. They do outcompete one another, but you worry about that a lot less when you start to see, oh, and here's baby guppies. These were fire and ice guppies from Lucas Bretz, but the male arrived deceased. But the female, like all female guppies, of course, all I had to do was keep her away from any other male guppy, and she's been steadily dropping a few babies I don't know, every week she drops probably 4 or 5, which is nice. So the erythromicrons that you guys have seen me growing out, which I've tubbed those outside with a celestial pearl danios. They will intermix genetically. They don't do it that regularly, but it does occur if they're together. But they look really cool either way. And here's some more back in here. They're just a very shy fish. And if you want to spawn enough of them that maybe you'll see them once in a while, tubbing's a great way to do it. And these guys, the lighting's not so good in here either. But you've probably seen where you can see they're like a beautiful emerald color mixed with some other colors. I want to, the next fish I really want to breed, other than, I want to find some red-capped rice fish. I know Aquatic Arts has them, but they're $20 a fish before shipping. And I know that's expensive. I can't justify it with trying to conserve money right now for my wife and I, while all the crazy stuff's going on with sickness. And I totally wanted to say again, thank you guys for watching, for liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing, all that stuff. I totally understand that not everybody can help out on Patreon, and some people have just, they've messaged me and just felt so guilty, and I'm like, no, stop. It touches me deeply that people like the channel, they enjoy the content, and they're willing to give 3 or 5 or 10 or whatever dollars to help out the channel a month. Like, that is really touching. But take care of your needs, of course, first. If this gives you as much entertainment as a movie, I mean, it's $20 to go to a movie. I mean, then, split that up over 3 months. It's like going to a movie every 3 months if you want to support it. If you got extra money, then do that. But I mean, now if you're out of work, please don't give it to some crazy fish channel like me. But I also did a video of what do I spend the Patreon money on, to show you guys some of the things I do. So my wife wanted new gouramis, and they needed to be quarantined. I didn't want to put them in a little quarantine tank, so I stuck them in this big old quarantine tank. And yes, they could get some of my other fish sick if there's something wrong with them. But they came from Sierra Pets in Renton, and I trust them. They look healthy. Every single one there looked healthy. And moreover, they were all ordered, and they're in their own tank with its own water system. Moreover, they were all ordered before the shutdowns began. So they've been in the powder blue dwarf gouramis have been in that store for a minute now. So I thought they were a safe choice. But my wife wants these to go upstairs in place of some of the angelfish. So here is the female. Right here. See the rounded fins? See how they're all rounded and not pointed? Whereas this guy, they come back to a point. Well, they should. They do when he's alert. And he's also got kind of like a hog nose to him. So that's that. Now, he's in here with all my balloon tiger endlers. or I mean, sorry, not balloon tiger, and there's balloon tiger barbs, as well as my Honduran, my singular Honduran red point cichlid. I need to get some more convex cichlids for them. But really what I'd like to do in here is clear all these plants out. These are all just, I mean, the CO2 hasn't been running in here, and neither, the light has been blocked by these plants. Basically what's been happening in here is tetras have been able to spawn. It's so densely thick. I mean, it's so thickly planted. And I'm also starting to see some like traces of blackbeard on my really slow growing. Like I just pulled this out to show you guys how gnarly it got. It was pushed all the way to the back corner, and I'm actually gonna like bring it out, trim everything off the rhizomes, and start over with that. But you can see here that some of the mosses are growing out really nice in shapes and things, but I just have a lot of them, and I think I need to get rid of the floating plants in this tank is the bottom line. If I'm going to do stem plants, I need to get rid of the floating plants or get some ungodly strong light. But in here, the shrimp have all rebounded. I told you for a while that the barbs, tiger barbs, and the cichlid had kind of depleted it, the shrimp population of Malawa shrimp and the snail population. But now this debris that settles at the bottom daily, this mulm and just parts of algae, parts of moss, parts of sawassertang. As unsightly as this is, this actually has all sorts of little critters and plankton and oddball stuff in it, and it's where all the fish are spawning. This is the density you need right here in your tubs for that spawning to work. And I'm just picking up the algae with my turkey baster, getting it out, and then I just keep a bucket in the room. So yeah. But yeah, as far as tubbing, I mean, you can get fun with it. You could drain a lava lamp. I mean, you'd want to, maybe that's too small. You wouldn't want to put fish in that, but you could put plants in that. You could put, mason jars, wine jugs, carboys for brewing beer and wine. Those are another great one. Just de-weeding some of the filter stuff here. And then I've got quite the mess going on this bed. But yeah, so, and I could tell you that my Danios, all my zebra Danios and all sorts of other Danios. Hey Mark, by the way, how's it going? Good to see you. Oh, you got some red tuxedo guppies. Sweet. Also, J-Rad Iron Man, thank you so much for the super chat. I do appreciate it, even though I just had a spiel about how I don't need you guys to super chat me, especially if you're hurting at all. But it will go straight back to fish and things that I will show you. It's not going towards like me being a baller and flexing. But I did get a new pen. That's exciting. And I was selling coloring books. So that's kind of how my wife and I, that's our little side hustle right now, was I took the money, reinvested in coloring books. You guys have already seen the coloring book art. If you haven't, you can find my website at, let's see here. I've got the website somewhere. But I printed these all locally, independently. Not somainc.com. That's my old website. somaincdesigns.com. But all sorts of funky fun art. A lot of it has like fish and octopus and cuttlefish and cats and rhinos and elephants and bears. Oh my. Koi fish. There's some cuttlefish mating. That's one of my favorites. It's relevant to the channel, I suppose, which is human sushi. You can see there's a fugu chef, a pufferfish trained chef in a California roll. But I think I'll probably get demonetized now. But yeah, these are, there we go. So some of these are like some of the tattoo art that I did back in the day when I had my tattoo shop. And then I had a cat that was half ocelot. So some of that stuff. Yeah, I won't flip through there. It'll get demonetized. But in here, there's also some cute aquatic / botanical stuff. I do this for the University of Washington and other universities that need illustrations. These are all done with spores from the mushroom illustrated, and then it's got the name of the mushroom, and then there's always a hint to the whether it's edible, dangerous, intoxicating, and then different stages of it. In any case, done with that. I know I've already showed that, but somebody was like, "You did that," so I figured I'd touch on it again. Um, let's see here. How are the snails doing in here? It looks like this betta is patiently waiting, saying, "Mr. Pea Puffer, open it for me." You got the beer opener, brah? That's what he's saying. Oh, J Red says I was sending you the super chats before you said that. Yeah, well, if you guys want to see them working together to hunt a little bit more, you can look at the video I put up that's up right now. Also, by the way, look at this gudgeon. This peacock gudgeon, she is so ready to have babies all over the place. And this boy is not. But they have a little house. Our house is a very, very, very dangerous house with bettas everywhere and pufferfish killing things on the side of it. Yeah. Look at how scared the bettas are of the pufferfish. These puffers, they just have such attitude. The gudgeons are not scared of them. They'll hold their own. But the bettas sometimes will come running up and like charge down the pufferfish, and then as soon as they see it, they're like, "Oh, never mind. I was just kidding. I'm not tough." So that's that. I thought I'll show you. So those little shrimp that I showed you, I waited till a bunch of these were pregnant, and yes, right this moment for these few weeks, it is possible that these shrimp could hybridize, and I might lose some of the cool traits. But right now we've got a lot of the pregnant shrimp with the little teeny baby shrimp that have already hatched, and you can see these ones are gonna have that Red Riding Hood look. If you can make out their shoulder, looks kind of oranger than the rest of their body. But they're still very small, and but I have lots of pregnant shrimp in here, so that's why I moved the Bettas. But I think afterwards the scarlet Bettas are gonna go in here, or maybe outside even into tubs. They can withstand cooler weather as well. Like I said, micro predators not from right at the equator are a great fish to start. If you know that much about them, check out if people have used them in tubbing and see how it goes. Because there's a lot of also killifish too that you can do, but they tend to be top water fish, and they tend to get eaten by birds and so forth. But also carp, catfish, things like that. If you've got a big body of water, I mean, I don't want to limit your dream. Don't stop me from dreaming, or don't stop me. Don't let me stop you guys from dreaming big. I would hate to do that. So, do we have any questions concerning life and fish as we know them? Thought I'd see what it's doing outside. It started raining for a minute, and it's windy. But I thought I'd show you how small of an area I have and where I'm going to be tubbing total. Oh, yeah. Good camera angle, Alex. I pressed the zoom out, and it just makes my hair look like I'm insane. Like the scientist from Back to the Future Doc. But right here, I'm going to get one of those quarter whiskey barrels or whatever. They sell some plastic versions too at like what's it called, Home Depot or Lowe's for like $40 or $50. If you really want to do, you could do that. We might do that, depends on what my wife wants to do. But I would prefer to actually have the tannins from a real barrel. This is an elevated porch, and so I don't want it to collapse. So I don't want to put like 50 gallons of water out there, but like 20 or 30 would be fine, especially like centered in the corner under the pole, or right here, it would be fine no matter what. But other than that, the only areas we really have, and I've been talking in theory to the Seattle folk about this, but here's where I got all the mosquito larvae. Here's all the Daphnia larvae, as well as Adanio and Neocaridina Dina tank. These are side projects of different starters that have either died. There's bloodworms that have returned, actually. I'll tell you about that project if it works, but I have live bloodworms that are pretty gross, but they're growing in an abundance. And I'm worried, though, that they're making the fish sick, the guppies I've been experimenting on. But over here, I live in a unit that's got a bunch of people, a bunch of entrances. But in Seattle, all these houses are all carved up. But I live in a unique neighborhood where this, luckily, even though I have no yard and we pay crazy rent, this is my garden plot, my wife and I. So we've got this area here, and I've actually thought about digging into the ground and doing like tilapia in a whole tub lining that would take up, you know, probably 8 feet by 4 feet, something like that. Strawberries are coming in. And the other thing I want to do is start this year. So like right here, I could do it, and then I could also have peas and things like that being taken care of by the water in there. Also, we have water pumped in to here. This used to be a road in the turn of the century, and it was too steep for cars. And so by the 1950s, they made it a little park, and then in the 90s, they made it a community garden that you can get patches in if you live nearby. And then we give half the food to the food bank, and half of it we can have. And with floral, we give it to like elderly nursing homes and things. But you know, we've got things like, and then we trade with other plot owners. So yeah, this is things in the works, thoughts, plans. Usually you can see the Olympic Mountains out that way, but right now you cannot see anything other than my non-painted nails. I might have to pick a new color though. It sounds like everybody was having fun with that. Went to a lake and got some plants that I put in a tub and waited for about a week, and then got some minnows from the lake, put them in. Do I need to feed them, or will they eat bugs? Well, they'll probably eat bugs. It depends what kind of fish they are. I'd figure that out. If you have little sunfish, they get mean, but they'll eat little bugs. They'll be limited by that. I would still get like koi food or something like that, throw in something with filler like soy or corn or whatever, you know, that they'll eat if they'll eat it. Don't feed them like power bait or a bunch of human food. You're gonna leave oil and a bunch of other crap in there if you do that. But I think experimenting with what's in your own backyard is always the best, because it already agrees with your weather. You don't have to do anything or worry about anything. So yeah, that's what I would say. In the United States, I would love to get my hands on some candy darters or candy stripe darters, some little green fairy darters. There's a bunch of different darters, like throwing a dart, that are beautiful little fish, and in psychedelic colors, crazy patterns that you don't even see in most saltwater fish. So those are good. I mean, if you live in the South, or you can get your hands on them, any of the little pup fish or cave-dwelling fish, if it's legal, are great. A lot of the chud and also sticklebacks are a really fun one to do. They only get about this big. But I like to be able to see those, in all honesty. So doing a cold water tank, and those can withstand freezing water, they can withstand 90-degree water. I have videos, check them out if you guys are interested in extremophile fish. I have a video of them living in hot springs where I take the temperature of the water, and it was 100 degrees, and we were at this place, and they were in the hot springs, like Yellowstone geyser type, like sulfuric hot springs up in Canada. Pretty cool, at Harrison Lake. Okay, there weren't any geysers, but there were hot springs. That's the point. And people have let guppies go in hot springs or in not even hot springs, but just thermal springs like in Florida where it's 72 degrees all year long. Crystal River, Indian River, a lot of the different places all throughout that Great Basin that drains down into Florida. And that whole limestone Swiss cheese basin has fish connected underground, underwater rivers. It's really interesting. And then pockets where things have collapsed and fish have been for like 20 million years. And that's where you get those weird pup fish and interesting rainbow darters and, you know, things like that. Red darters, blue top fin minnow, you know, metallic black darters. Um, I can go. We'll do an episode on native, not nano fish, but small fish. There aren't a ton of nano fish. There's gambusia. There are least killifish, and then there are some top minnows. There's flagfish that are fairly small. Florida flagfish. They'll eat black beard algae, which is nice. So they're good for an indoor tank too. And they're kind of pretty. They've got like kind of a yellowy greenish snot colored reflectiveness to them. You could grow to love them. But in any case, I'm going to wrap things up on that note. I have a cyanobacteria problem in that puffer pea tank, pea puffer tank, not a puffer tank full of pea. In that it was growing algae. I got it to stop growing normal algae, and now it's growing cyanoalgae on things. Not at a crazy rate, but at a rate I don't like. And so I'll have to do a video on how to do that. It's an antibiotic treatment or a nuclear treatment, not nuclear. But thank you for joining me, you guys. Thank you for the super chat, JRat. And all of you, thank you for tuning in. If you have questions, a lot of people have been asking me questions about setting up tanks, beginning, things like that. You can totally hit me up, and if I can get to you, I will answer you. But also check out, I've got 500 videos now. The channel has been a channel for, I mean, not just the, whatever, 12 years, since 2008 or something that I've had the channel. I got rid of most of those videos from back then because they were like silly, drunken college type videos. But since then, my YouTube has been focused on this for the last 4, arguably maybe even 5 years. There's a couple videos out there, but people like, I know Bob Kaler and Fishy57 and Betsy and people like that who tune in have been watching, and that loyalty, that checking back in even if you don't watch all the time, means the world to me. So that is worth a lot more than, you know, Patreon or super chats, but all of that is appreciated also too, obviously. All right, guys, take it easy, take care of yourselves. I hope you guys are doing well, not going too crazy, and I hope that like tubbing and putting together some of these little jar aquariums or aquariums outside, some cool water aquariums, can give you some cool ideas. You can also do saltwater. We can talk about that, do like an oyster shell based one. There's a lot of people living on the coasts. I could do it. I mean, saltwater's only 2 miles away from me. Be a pain to go get salt water and change the salt water like that all the time out of like an outside tub style tank. But that was done in the Victorian era, and they did it with sea anemones and all sorts of interesting things. So maybe I'll do an episode on that as well. That's another, I want to get back to the historic stuff. It's just been a little more difficult lately with life as it is. All right, you guys, take it easy. Remember to take care of your critters, take care of your fish, your shrimp, your plants, blah, 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 all your little organisms. Take care of your family, friends, whoever you're allowed to touch, really take care of them. If you're still allowed to be in contact with them, don't blow that one. If, you know, if half of us do half of that, as well as take care of ourselves, so we can do half of that, I think we'll have twice as good of a world. And it's not just a thing I say, I really believe it. So, and I just said it, it's a thing I say. Okay, it's both. And I will talk to you guys later. Have a great night, and talk to you later. Palabra, for those of you who know what I'm talking about.